for owners' tax treatment. New York Attorney General declared Ethereum, which is the second largest crypto asset, a security. That's a huge change, by the way.
Yep.
SEC continued its anti-consumer protection efforts by doubling down their attempt to block a spot Bitcoin ETF. OCC let crypto bank Protego's application for a national trust charter expire. And then the SEC just sent Coinbase a Wells notice. So I think it's hard to argue that there isn't a concerted effort now to crack down on crypto by a wide variety of government agencies and authorities, starting with Gensler at the SEC, who seems incredibly hostile to crypto. So now the only question is this correlated with the stress that the banking system is under, or is it just a coincidence? And that I don't know, but I think the argument Balaji would make is that at the same time, they're going to deflate the dollar. They're going to make it harder for you to find an off-ramp. And he actually brought up a historical example that I wasn't aware of. I think it's called Executive Order 6201, which is FDR way back in the 1930s, actually had an executive order that confiscated all the private gold bullion in the country. And they seized the gold bullion, making the accusation that private citizens were hoarding too much gold. So in any event, this is the theory. I don't know whether it's true or not. It could be a coincidence.
Chamath, do you think that this is correlated in any way with the crisis, or is just the fact that FTX blew up and all these other things blew up and the public is really upset that they lost a lot of money on this and the SEC has got to cover and be a little bit more active instead of reactive when it comes to dealing with the crypto losses that consumers had?
Yeah, it's the latter. I mean, I think that there was a rumor going around, I don't know how true it is, that FTX was days away from getting a critical approval by the SEC to actually even further legitimize their U.S. exchange before they went out of business. So I think Gensler had to pivot very hard from, at a minimum, being very pro FTX, and there's all kinds of stories about his interrelatedness with Sam and his family, to very anti-bit or anti-crypto in general. That's clearly happened. But look, I think that this is like a lot of tin hatting, which I don't think is very productive. If you look at the total number of non-zero Bitcoin wallet addresses in the world, and let's be extremely generous and say it's 100 million, there's still 7 billion people in the world. And so I just think everybody that tries to speak about the fragility of the US and worldwide banking system is right. And that part I think is quite lucid and unemotional. But every time they try to connect it to Bitcoin, they sound like a crazy person because they're just talking their book.
And that is exactly the case, by the way, with this kid, Nick Carter. Yeah.
And the best example to demonstrate this is in all of this chaos. If Bitcoin or crypto assets in general were truly a legitimate off-ramp and salvation from US dollar hegemony and all of this stuff, why isn't Bitcoin at least at 35,000 a coin right now? It's barely above 28,000. It really hasn't moved that much. And I think the real answer is that most people in Bitcoin are not trying to hedge their existing fiat currency exposure. They're just picking off people in retail. And they're just day trading this thing. How else do you explain an asset that is not absolutely ripped in the face of all of this terrible news about the financial system? And I think the answer is because it's still a cul-de-sac of users. It's not broadly available, not broadly adoptable, not broadly used. I still believe that it's valuable. I was the earliest proponent of Bitcoin, 2011.
Yeah.
2012. So I believe that there's a place for it in one's portfolio, but I just think connecting these dots misses the point. And I think the point is much, much bigger than a crypto off-ramp. The point is that we have a lot of systemic shocks that are building up in the system. We have broken a ton of the systems that cause the financial infrastructure and the world to work properly. And we are just starting to uncover how they're broken. So I think we need to focus our energy on that and dial down a little bit of the Bitcoin maxi stuff because it distracts from a really important set of topics that are more inclusive and actually touch 7 billion people.
we have to do the cleanup work. And just to
It's a good,
be
good
perfectly
point,
clear
Mark.
here, Nick
Yeah.
Carter is a career crypto. He's on his third fund, his $250 million third fund, according to a quick Google search. He's a partner at Castle Island Ventures. And I believe Balaji believes what he's saying, and at the same time is massively in Bitcoin, and the $2 million he'll obviously lose in this bet, or the 99.9% chance. And he said that already. I think he believes he's doing a service, just like he did believe he was doing a service with COVID. So I do not doubt his intent, but I believe his book is based on this, and the $2 million will be easily paid off by his increase.
He's a very smart and good guy. My point is, put this in the who cares bucket and get back to the facts. Friedberg mentioned it. We have a debt ceiling problem that's in the offing. Sachs mentioned it. We have a commercial real estate crisis. We just talked about the fact that he didn't raise rates enough, nor did he cut enough. So we're in this weird middle path that Jay Powell we're talking about. So those are the facts on the ground that I think we should focus on, because those will have implications to how people can borrow, start businesses, capitalize risk assets. That's a big problem.
I guess the moral hazard comes up, Sachs, and the critique I think that people have had of you, focusing on bank bailouts, etc., has been you have been anti-bailout, and now, hey, maybe backstopping the deposits, not backstopping the bank, the shareholders' loss. You were very clear about that. But let's talk about moral hazard here for a minute. Are we sort of getting...
I'm not for bail. When did I say I was either for or
I just
against
clearly
bailouts?
stated you were not. I just clearly stated you're not. I'm saying this is the critique that people have had of you, so I'm giving you a chance to address it.
Why are you giving him people's critiques of him? Nobody.
Because
Come on.
I want him to talk about the future moral hazard.
What people?
Of more of a-
User 76542 on Twitter. Who cares what that person thinks?
Okay, I was also
Why
thinking
do
about the
you give-
Wall.
why do you
Let me-
give
let me
these-
jump in
I'm
so
also
people-
thinking about
People
the
any
Wall Street
airtime.
Journal, the New York Times, and everything.
Let me jump in and just clarify. I was really clear that SVB's shareholders
Yes.
should be wiped out. Their bondholders should be wiped out. Their
As I just
management
said.
stock options should be wiped out. In fact, if it turns out that they should have known the thing was about to go under, I think their stock sales should be clawed back. So I'm not in favor of bailing out SVB. I don't care about SVB.
Yes, of course. Now, let's do that for commercial real estate.
No, the question is what you do with deposits and depositors.
Correct.
I
And we
think
know
there
that.
is a real debate about how you treat depositors in a banking crisis. And I think there are two views on that. There's kind of an old fashioned view, and then there's kind of a more modern regulatory view. The old fashioned view is that if your money is in a bank and that bank goes under and, you're over the FDIC amount, you lose your money. And we need people in the system to lose their money because that creates discipline